evening, UK Crime Book Club. I'm here with the lovely Jane. I've described you as warm and witty to everyone I've spoken to all week because you're really friendly and warm, and you made me laugh so much when we had a chat. So introduce yourself, and I will just tag in our lovely members.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Samantha, for having me. Hello, everybody. My name is Jane Risdon, and I'm a writer of crime and multi-genre. I don't know why I went into that, but anyway, that's what I do. My background is in the international music industry. And before that, I worked for the Foreign and Commonwealth Office in London at the height of the Cold War. And I'm married to a musician who's plonking away in the background.
So show off your book covers.
Right. What would you like to see? It's undercover crime. That's a collection.
I think it'd be really nice. Oh, Kaz is tagging for us, so I will stop.
Oh,
thank you,
okay.
Caroline Maston. So yeah, show everything and tell us about which genres you're writing.
Oh, okay. Well, I do mainly crime, but I've written in women's fiction. I'll show you, which I wrote with Christina Jones, who's quite well known.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, that's 1960s, set in the UK music industry, and it's a sort of fact fiction. No dead bodies, except a few assassinations of American presidents. But there we are. So that I wrote with Christina. And then
if you suddenly disappear, it's because you just said assassinations of American presidents. We're just saying about how Facebook can be sometimes. So if we disappear, it was nice.
It's a historical fact. Right. And then I do a lot of sort of anthologies. So this is a crime anthology, and it's got Martin Edwards. So if you like his writing, he's in there, Margot Kinberg, and a lot of other people. So I've got 2 short stories in there, and they're set in the music industry and in Hollywood. And what else have I got? I've got magazines that I write for. I don't want to hold up them all because I've got lots and lots of sort of ghost stories and time slip stories, but that sort of thing. You can find it on my Amazon page. You know,
and on your website, there's all sorts on your website.
And on my website. Yeah, that's janerisdon.com. So you can find them on there. You know, and I think I'm only one of 2 Jane Risdons. I think there's a lady recently sort of introduced herself to me who's a Jane Risdon. I think she's a very distant relation of my husband's. And then there's one, I think, about 17th or 18th century. So you'll know which one you've got if you Google me. You know, I'm the one that's not wearing the witch's hat.
Me, I've got a very unusual name because we spell it with a Y at the end instead of 2 E's. So there's not many of us.
No, well, there aren't many Risdons, really, because I mean, I think they sort of came from Exeter and then spread out across the world, you know, during the time. I think some of them were founding of Van Diemen's Island, which is Tasmania, and various things like that. So, that, you know, whereas my family went out across the world as well, but we won't go into surnames because that's as boring as you can get.
Kaz has just typed in the link to your website. Thank you, Kaz.
Kaz, thank you. That's very kind of you.
She's a keeper, is our Caroline. She is.
Is she? Well, I hope you pay her well.
Oh, absolutely. I pay her in compliments. She's wonderful. We're just saying that we don't usually... Kaz will laugh at this. I didn't know that I could put our names on the screen. So I've only been using the software for a couple of years.
So we know who we are now.
We do know who we are.
Yeah.
It's weird seeing my name is Samantha. I feel like I'm in trouble.
You need to be a Sam. Is that right?
Absolutely a Sam. I'm only a Samantha if I'm in trouble with my mum.
Yeah, I know. There's a tone of voice that mummies use, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Samantha.
So let's start off with your path to publication.
Right.
So different genres, different kind of. I mean, you've been published in lots of ways all over the place. So how did it all start off?
How did it all start off? Right. About, I think, 2011, I started to write a book, which I thought was going to be a crime novel based in the 60s with music and, you know, all the venues and things. And as it progressed, I suddenly realized it was turning into a love story. And I thought, my God, I don't write love stories. So then I was mentioning it to Chrissy, who's used to be my husband's fan club secretary. and she'd become a writer for the last 30 odd years very successfully, and she'd always wanted to write with me, and she said, why don't you send it to me and I'll see, you know, what you're doing, because I said, well, I can't sort of actually kill anybody in it. I was writing away and I was thinking,
the horror of not being able to kill your characters off.
I know. And so I sent it to her and she said, oh my God, I love it. And I want to write a character in it, and we can have this love triangle, and it can be set in the 1960s music scene like You've Got It. It's just she wanted to introduce another character. So that's what we did. And at the time I'd written 2 short stories for what became Headline, but it was Accent Press. And they'd taken those short stories for anthologies. And so they said, well, they wanted to publish Only One Woman with the 2 of us. So that's what we did. So that's how that came about. But at the same time, I was writing lots and lots of crime stories. And then people would say, oh, would you do, a short story for an anthology? And then I ended up writing a couple of ghost stories, and then a couple of time slip stories. And then I'd have music stories with crime in them, because my background's music as well as sort of like the Cold War era. And so it developed from there. And I think Only One Woman should have been published in 2014, but it didn't come out till 2018 because of things that were happening with the publisher. And the other 2 books had come out before. And then since then, steadily on, I've had sort of various things coming out, but I've actually written 3 books in a series called Miss Birdsong Investigates, which is about a former MI5 intelligence officer who comes back from Moscow with a joint MI6 operation, and she's asked to take voluntary retirement, but she doesn't know why, and they won't tell her. They just wanted rid of her. So she ends up getting sacked or voluntary retirement, and eventually she moves somewhere that she thinks she's going to sort of try and get her act together and find out why she was booted out and then get back in again. And while she's there, in this village, she goes to a village, quiet little place that she had seen many years ago, and decides to investigate a missing woman. And that missing woman drags her almost back into MI5 again. There's a lot of Russian mafia and people traffickers, and Ukrainian pro-Russian separatists are in it, which is really weird because look at today. Yeah. They're invading the Ukraine. And so that is now with my agent in New York, and she's looking for a publisher. So book 1's with her, and I'm going back over book 2 and 3. Well, it might be more if people like it, but at the moment it is a trilogy, yeah. And there's the first one is called Murder in Ampney Parva, which is what happens when she moves to this place. The second one is called the Matryoshka Files, which are those Russian dolls, when you peel them away, you've got another doll inside. And then the third one is called The Safe House. And so you get a bit of sort of MI5 in there, and also a normal woman going about her daily work, trying to get her way back into MI5 and frustrating the life out of herself. And then there's a love interest in there as well, but it's not schmaltz. I don't do schmaltz. so that's
if people want to kind of have a look at that now while you're looking to place it, there is there's an extract from one in the in your
in the back of here.
Crime Shots. Your undercover Crime Shots.
Yeah, there's a little extract there between a woman that's she was trafficked as a madam, and she becomes an informer for MI5. And so that scene there is with somebody that she's had to get into bed with, literally, to keep him happy, so that she can report back to MI5 about him. So that's just a little taster. But I also have a Facebook page, which is Miss Birdsong Investigates, and people can join that, but it's a private page, and there is information about Lavinia Birdsong and her career, how she started out from university at MI5 and worked her way up. And she thinks that she hoped that she'd end up with being the Director General. And of course, they messed that up when they asked her to leave. And she's a martial arts expert, so there's a lot of physical stuff in there as well. She's a bit handy. Not like me, of course. I'm
not like me either. It's the me in my head rather than the actual me.
Yeah, Yeah.
So where did the name Lavinia Birdsong come from? Because what a name.
Oh, I know. Do you know, it was really weird. I was watching an episode. This sounds bad. I was watching an episode.
I love this already. Go on.
I was watching an episode of Midsummer Murders a long time ago, and there was this woman called Mrs. Rainbird in it, and I thought, oh, what an unusual name. And then when I was thinking about writing this book, the name Lavinia Birdsong popped into my head. And I saw her, I had a vision of her completely, what she looked like, what she liked to eat, what she liked to drink, what perfume she wore, what clothes she liked, what music she listened to. It all came in a massive flash. And so I wrote it down. And then I thought, well, I hope nobody else is called Lavinia Birdsong. But I don't know why. It's just, I like the name. I mean, if a publisher ever wants to change it, that's up to them. I'm not fussy. But yeah, she came all in one bit, actually. It was very easy to write. The second and third books are not, because, you get feedback on the first book and then you start changing things because you think, well, I better do this, that and the other. But yeah, that's how I came up with her name. It was Midsummer Murders, one wet afternoon.
See, that's something that authors say sometimes, that when their agent or their editor or somebody suggests something, are you a pick your battle kind of person, or are you a go with the flow, or are you adamant about certain things?
I've been lucky, touch wood, so far. I haven't had any aggravation from anybody. I mean, I didn't have an agent until 2020, when one approached me, and it took me a year to sort of decide whether I needed one, because I hadn't even looked for a publisher. Oh yeah, but I haven't even looked for a publisher, because when I was writing, I just thought, I'm getting it off my chest. I've always wanted to write, and I had this vision of being this great big crime writer, and out came it was like a romance, but it's not quite. Men like reading Only One Woman as well. But I don't know why. Well, I think it was when I gave it to Chrissy, I think it was something like 65,000 words. And she wrote her bit, and the publisher took it and said, could you write another 65,000 words? So it's actually, I think it's 500 pages long.
Wow.
It's quite, if you look, it's quite thick, but actually
it reads off at all.
No, but a lot of people say, oh, I don't like big books, and the only thing I was asked to change in that was, there was we had about 5 editors in the end, but because they all left, but the one of them was about 20, I think, and she wanted to make sure that the guitarist in the story, because it's a music thing, was not some sort of paedophile, because the main character was 16, and she for some reason assumed that he was like 35 or 40, but actually he was only 18. So I had to put that into the story, so that all the people out there were all going, oh my God, he's too old and all this sort of thing, weren't upset about it. But other than that, they didn't change anything, just my terrible punctuation, because I'm absolute rubbish at punctuation. But no, so I didn't have a battle with that. And with Lavinia Birdsong was quite interesting, because I had an agent that was interested in me, as I say, for a year. And I kept thinking, do I want one? Do I need one? And then she was persistent, and she was very good. She asked for 7 pages and a synopsis, and then she asked for 50 pages, and then she asked for the whole manuscript, and I had a nervous breakdown because it was 2020. My son was in hospital for a year during 2020, not COVID, but I mean, he nearly died several times, and so I couldn't really concentrate, and I kept sort of thinking, should I be getting fed up waiting, because I was like taking forever, and I tweaked it a bit, and I sent it back, the whole manuscript to her. She came back and she said, we absolutely love it. I think it's effing brilliant. Right. And she said, the only thing is, could you embellish one character a bit more, which I did. As I really am not fussy. I mean, if that's what she's an expert, I'm not. And so I did that and sent it back. And then she came back and she said, it's gone before our panel. I think it went before a couple of panels, I'm not sure, and they'd like to offer me a contract. So then I sat on that for about 3 months, umming and ahhing, and sort of like trying to see who this person was and their track record and what have you. And she's English, but she's based in New York, and I thought she seemed to get me. So I did it. I've done it. And so now she's going, she's looking at all 3 books, but she started with the first one. And so we're waiting to see, I think she's not sure. I think it's mainly, she thinks, for the British market, but possibly for the American market. But she thinks it might make a good movie, but I don't know. I go with the flow. I think that's the best thing.
I often think that's the best way.
Yeah, because when I was managing rock bands and doing all of that sort of thing, record producing and record producers, all that sort of thing, the pressure to get a result nearly kills you. Yeah. I mean, the bands want something, the singer wants something, the record producer wants something, the record company's on your back 24/7, then the publisher's on your back, and then you've got the person that books all the gigs, are on your back. And I thought, I don't know if I could. I mean, I can do it for someone else, but I don't know if I can do it for myself. And so I had a bit of a shock, when somebody said they wanted to publish me, and then when someone wanted to represent me, I was really surprised. But then I thought, okay, because I mean, the thing is, if someone else believes in you, then it makes it so much better for you, doesn't it? Because you have a bit more confidence.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So no. Touch wood, I don't know. I'm not going to get upset about it, because I've seen so many people's careers go down the pan, and you become suicidal over it. And
there's no need, if it's preventable, yeah.
It's not
understand,
really. I mean, if I were starting off in my 20s writing, it probably would grip me in a different way, but I'm not. So I take it as it comes. And if somebody says, write it in double Dutch backwards, I'd say, okay, when do you want it? I'm really, it's just different, and I'm enjoying it. So that's, that's the main thing. But I will, if somebody asks me to come up with the goods, I will come up with the goods, and on time. I'm quite good at that. Because again, I'm used to turning up at venues on time. Let the show begin. Can't wait for me.
We've got quite a few hellos and questions already. So Kaz has already let us know that we're still here after our brief comments about presidents. We'll just move on from that. We've got hellos from Andrew. Tony Millington said hello. Mark.
Hello, Andrew. Hello, Mark. Dale.
And we've got
almost anagram of your real life surname. Pardon?
Sorry, say again.
Oh no, I said Mark Dare, almost an anagram of your real surname. Wow. Whatever that is.
So Kaz says, I love that some of your things are set in the music industry. Do you know a lot about it? Well, you do. So can you name drop? Are you interested in name dropping?
No, a little bit, I suppose. I mean, I married a musician, and I've been with him since I was 16. And he sort of not retired, because musicians don't retire, but we decided to go into the music industry together. And we've worked with lots of famous people. I mean, I've worked with David Cassidy, made an album with him. Let me think, who else? Roger Taylor from Queen, did a single with him and toured with him. David Hasselhoff.
Oh my word! Okay.
Did Baywatch with him. Let me think.
Oh, my friend will be very jealous. She has got a major thing for the Hoff.
Oh, really? Shall I tell you a funny story?
Go for it.
Back in the 90s, they were filming the original Baywatch series, and our record company had links to the Baywatch production company, and Baywatch was the most successful television series of that era, with, I think it was like 2 billion viewers a week.
2 billion? I mean, I know there weren't a lot of channels, but wow, that is a lot of people all over the world.
In 200 countries it was sold to. I've seen the checks that they had. when they were banking the check. And so to get onto that show was a big thing. And we managed to do the music for the bits in between all the series and some of the music for the songs. And I got our artists on there and what have you. And David Hasselhoff, I mean, we used to get up at sort of like 4 a.m. and start filming on Venice Beach. And what was the other beach? Zuma Beach in Los Angeles, Santa Monica area. And one scene in this particular episode that we were doing, he had to drive the yellow, I don't know what you call it. It's like a pickup truck thing that they used to go around the beach on. The beach. Yeah, you know the one I mean.
I know what you mean. I don't know what it's called.
No, but it's got lifeguard written on the side. And he had to drive it from like one place in a straight line to another place. And he could never do it. I think he must have done it 30 times. Wow. And he just couldn't get this vehicle to go from A to B in a straight line. And of course, they were absolutely cracking up. But of course, what we didn't know was that he had a body double. And so they got the body double in the car and he drove it straight line first time. So going through the sea and all of that, like, it's always his body double. But that was hilarious. I mean, it was. And then I remember being introduced to him and he said, my name is David Hasselhoff and I'm very big in Germany. And so we all said, oh, that's nice. And he said, yeah, he said, I've sold 1 million records over the weekend in Germany, because he was there when the wall came down and what have you. And so we thought, well, that was very nice. And anyway, on the Monday morning, we started filming again, and he'd forgotten he'd met us because we're that memorable. And he came and he's, hi, I'm David Cassidy. I sold 10 million records in Germany over the weekend. And we thought, you've gone from 1 million to 10 million in 2 days. That's going something.
That's quite an achievement.
I suppose it's possible. It's just, we just thought, what a funny thing to say, you know.
What a way to introduce yourself.
Yeah. I felt like saying I'm Jane Risdon. I've sold one record. I didn't, you know, not that I'm singing on anything, but yeah. So there's David. I don't know. We worked with so many very, very famous songwriters and producers. Worked with Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey and David Bowie and people like that. I don't know. I mean, when I worked with Alice Cooper, it was an absolute thrill. When I used to have him on my bedroom wall. It's very strange.
I kind of misheard that for a second, and then my brain caught up.
You caught up, right? No, I used to have his posters on my bedroom wall, and to actually spend time with someone, I kept thinking, this is unreal, you know, Alice Cooper, and we were doing some auditioning with him for his Poison tour, which I think was about 1989, and he'd got a brand new red Corvette. And all he did was drive around the car park of the place. It was like a great big warehouse where we were doing the auditions and things. Just kept coming out of the audition, getting into this red Corvette and driving it around the car park and coming in with a grin about 10 feet wide and going, my Corvette. Yeah, it was very, very sweet. Very, very nice man. Yeah, I really liked him. Yeah. But I don't know. There's so many. When you ask people who do you know, I
bet every time somebody asks you, you get a different answer because somebody else will come to the front of your mind first.
Yeah, and my memory is so crap anyway. but I know that I turned on television on, I think it was the weekend, and I was looking for the news on Ukraine because having written about it, I keeping up to date with it, and I saw GB News, which is this new channel. And I thought I recognised that man's face, that he was the guy called Nigel Farage was interviewing this man. And I thought, you know, so had a closer look at him. Then, of course, I read the strap line at the bottom and it said this guy called Steve Mashat. And I thought, well, I know you. And, of course, his father managed the Beatles after Brian Epstein died, along with, I can't remember who. And he also was somebody that was introduced to us at Peter Gabriel's studio years ago, and he used to manage, I think, Adamski. Do you remember Adamski? Yeah, and John Paul Jones was there.
I've now got Killer in my head. That'll be keeping me awake till 2 in the morning.
And I thought, and it was so interesting listening to him talking about his career in the music industry, and what he'd been up to, and he's been writing books as well. But we hadn't seen him since those days. It was interesting to sort of see somebody out of the blue like that. And then for a second, I thought, I do know your face. And then, of course, looking at the strapline at the bottom, it rang a bell. But he was incredibly successful. He offered to help us a lot, actually, back in those days. But I think I can't remember if it was rock band or a pop band he was after that we had to work with us, But you sort of bump into strange people, and I think, oh, I do know you. I am very bad at memory things, because we did a huge tour across America with 2 artists that we managed, and my husband was off with a rock band at the same time, and I had this 2 people, and we did a tour of radio stations and video stations, and doing personal appearances on beaches and fields and God knows where. And we ended up at this hotel in Washington DC, which was really flashy. It was one of those places where everything's silver service. Even if you have a hamburger, it's like $25 in a silver service. And we'd have this big meet and greet for about 3 days there. And David Cassidy was there because we were doing the promotion for the single, I think, or the album. And I'd spent, it must be 3 days with the same group of people that I'd only just met. And the most embarrassing thing was we get in the elevator in the morning to go down to breakfast, and I'm chatting away to our artists, and a guy from a radio station came in. I knew him, so I said hello to him. Then stopped at another floor, and the doors open, and all these people got in their business suits, and it was like, how are you? How are you? And then I'm thinking, the way they were talking to me, they obviously knew me. I just had this complete mental blank, I couldn't remember. And I'm looking around thinking, somebody tell me who they are, because 2 of the people in the elevator were saying, Jane, who's this? Would you like to introduce us? And I'm going, And it turns out they were the people that I'd spent 3 days with, sitting on the same table every day. Talking. But, you've got like 400 people, 500 people, hello. And I just looked at it. I said, I'm so sorry, I can't remember your names. And they were like, we're the guys that decide whether your record is played on the radio station or not.
No.
That was a bit scary.
I bet it was a bit scary, yeah. That's the kind of thing that would happen to me, definitely.
Yeah. Complete blank. It's so weird. There's some very interesting characters. That's why I like to put a bit of music into the crime stories, because, Hollywood is a cesspit, really. You've got the movers and shakers in the music industry who are very corrupt, a lot of them, and they've got mafia links and things like that. So you can't really do business with anybody without bumping into one of them. And the very first meeting with the record company that we did over there was with the lawyer of this record company. They were Sicilian. And I'd read books about them, and I'm thinking, do we really want to do business with these people? They're so scary. And we did the whole meeting with the lawyer, and he had a baseball bat and a gun on his desk. And we were sat there, kept looking at the gun, kept looking at the baseball bat. And we said to him in the end, what are they for? And he said, they're for managers who come in here asking for more money. What do you want? And we're like, we wanted you to put the money up. But we actually were with them for about 10 or 12 years, I think. They're actually fun. And they weren't as bad as, well, to us they weren't as bad. But my son did laugh his head off when they took us for lunch the first time. And we went to this really flashy Italian restaurant. And they all sat with their backs to the wall and left us with our backs to the room. And the guy that ran the company stood up and did a toast and said, welcome to the family. And my son nearly wet himself laughing. He said, because he'd been on the way on the plane over, he kept saying, welcome to the family, and all this sort of thing. And they actually stood up and said, welcome to the family. And he just absolutely cracked up. He was about 18 at the time. And he was just like, oh my God. It's so funny.
Calling a taxi very quickly.
Yeah. No, you couldn't, because they had their bodyguards with them. their heavies were all stood around. Or what? I mean, if you've ever had to sit down and eat with all these people staring, walking around and looking, having bulges in their jackets, is very, very off-putting. You know, you think, I don't think I like this.
But
they
really good experience for writing crime.
Oh, you're not kidding. Yeah, because a lot of the people that you meet when you're, I mean, like on the road all over America, you go to all the radio stations in places that, you know, you didn't even know existed, very strange places. Oshkosh, you know, where the hell's Oshkosh? And I can't remember. But, you know, they have these little out of the way radio stations, and you turn up there and they are doing a meet and greet. So you probably get taken out to lunch, or they're interviewing you at 5 o'clock in the morning. You have to come out the hotel room. Sometimes if you don't get up in time, they might interview you while you're in bed, which is fun. But they've all been told to be good to you. And when you get to some of them, you get these stroppy people that won't come out and talk to you. And so I used to have to say, oh, so-and-so said to say hello, and they were out the door like a shot. You know, you will tell him that, you know, we haven't upset, you know, we don't upset him. You will tell him, won't you, that we did see you? Because they used to get funny sometimes and not want to come out and talk to you. But no, it was good fun. But you do realise that it's a very strange business, especially in the 1970s, because they're the payola scandals, which was pay to play on radio. Yeah. And if you didn't, your record never got played. Like Pink Floyd's record, you know, Another Brick in the Wall nearly didn't get played, because their management refused to pay. And the whole thing, they just pulled the plug on it. And when they paid up, they put the plug back in. But all those people ended up taking the ones that were involved ended up taking the Fifth Amendment to avoid going to prison, because there was a big scandal and court case. So, you know, some of those guys disappeared and nobody knows where they went.
I will keep any theories to myself. Keeping baseball bats and guns in mind.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, it's good. It is good background, you know, for a writer. And like when I worked at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, you know, it was the height of the Cold War. There were lots of things going on about spies all the time, which I can use in my stories. And I think we had, I think it was about 100 Soviet diplomats expelled from the London embassy for spying. And they got rid of so many from the Moscow embassy that were British, tit for tat. And then we had, I think, who was it? Oh, the ambassador to Montevideo, Jeffrey Jackson, was kidnapped while I was there and held for 9 months by some guerrillas. I can never pronounce their name. And then there was, what else was there? Oh, the guy, we used to have to be positively vetted. So every couple of weeks or months, they'd have you into sort of like special branch and give you a grilling, you know, who did you know, how long have you known them, and all this sort of rubbish. And I had lots of East German friends because I'd come over from Germany where I was working at the Ministry of Defence, and some of them had come out of Germany when the wall went up, and so they were deemed to be undesirable in terms of the British Foreign Office. And so I was told to get rid of them as friends. And the guy that positively vetted me actually arrested a couple called the Krugers, which were Soviet husband and wife spies who'd been part of the Portland spy ring in the early 60s. And so he used to sit, instead of asking me about me, he used to sit and tell me all these stories about all the spies that he tracked down and arrested. And my mind was going,
ticking over, keeping on record of it all.
Yeah.
I've just figured out what Mark Dare was saying earlier on. So when he said it's almost an anagram of your real life surname, Birdsong.
Isn't he clever?
Isn't it? Fast thinking, Mark.
Oh yeah, well done. Gosh, you must have a brain.
We also had hellos from Pam Leckie and Leslie Lloyd, but I couldn't. It just came Facebook user, so I wasn't sure who it was. So hi, Pam and Leslie.
Yeah. So was it when you're writing for magazines? Who's that? Something there. I can't see it properly. And Caroline Marston's underneath, and then she's above it. I don't know. Is Bookshops, when you're writing a magazine, is it easier in terms of editor? Looking at it before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there's a few different questions from Andrew. So I'll just go back to the top and we'll go down in order. So
Yeah.
Andrew wants to know if your books are available on audio.
No. I did have an audio deal, but it fell through. Change of publisher, and they didn't pick it up. The option on that.
And Andrew also asked, how long does it take you from writing your book to the editorial and publishers and then to the bookshops? Is the first part of the question. Right.
Well, that's difficult because with the first book that I actually finished with Christina, I think I'd finished that in about 3 months, and then she added her bits on. It went into the publisher, and they had a publication date for 2014. And then they had so many upheavals within the company. It was put off to 15, then it was 15 to 16, then 16 to 17, and they put it out in 2018. So that's how long it took to come out and get in the shops. And the editing, I think, was probably, although we had 5 editors, probably not that long actually, because I mean, Chrissy is the professional. I mean, she knows what she's doing with her eyes closed and her hands tied behind her back. I had to learn from her because I just wrote, what came out. And so she was very good in saying to me, that's okay, but perhaps you should start, the sentence this way round instead of that way. But apart from that, I mean, we wrote that book together, having, I think, 2 phone calls and a couple of emails. And that was it. She wrote I wrote my bits, gave it to her. She wrote her bit, went off to the publisher. The first time I read her bits was when it came back as an edit, because she wouldn't let me read it. So I had no idea what she'd written until it came back as, and the publisher took it actually agreed to publish it before we'd written it properly. So that was amazing, wasn't it?
Isn't that fantastic? Yes, and all on a chance discovery of the story that you were working on.
Yeah, because the thing was, I just moved back from America and we were downsizing, as you say, chucking a load of stuff out because we had a home over here as well, but we'd used it like a hotel really. And I was chucking stuff out and I kept coming across boxes of fan letters for my husband and photographs and posters and tour schedules and stuff that we'd done in the 60s. I mean, because it's completely separate life to the music life we had later. And I kept saying, you want to hang on to this? And he was, what is it? Let's have a look. I mean, we'd spend hours going through all this stuff. And it was because of that, I actually thought, that would make such a great story. And then I was trying to think, who could I bump off? No, you don't want to bump off a lead guitarist because he'd come back and haunt you. You can't do that to a lead singer because they'd never let you bump them off. So it was difficult. And as I said, it went off to Chrissy. I think she had a book she was writing. So it took her about 3 months to write her bits. But it was these delays with the publisher that was a pain. And then just as it was coming out in paperback, the company was sold to Hachette. So it's Headline Accent now. And they delayed it because they weren't publishing anything from Accent until they'd actually got all the files and understood what the hell was going on with the company, which was very confusing. So everything got delayed. So I can't answer that straight off, really. I suppose I would say about a year, probably. The whole process for an whole process. Yeah, that was just unusual. So I hope that helps, Andrew. And was there another question you said he had?
There was another part to the question which says, when you're writing for a magazine, is it easier in terms of the editor looking at it before she gives it the thumbs up? And that's from Andrew as well. So what's the difference between writing something, a shorter piece, a non-fiction piece maybe, for a magazine?
I don't know, actually. I mean, I quite like writing short pieces. I love to do flash fiction. I do a lot of flash fiction. Again, you see, I haven't had an editor come back to me and say, we're chucking this out, we're not using it. They usually come back and say, fine. But I think what it is that I do a lot of editing myself over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And I think probably by the time but I am crap at punctuation. So, I stick commas everywhere or semicolons, and then I get... but apart from that, not really. I've not had. I haven't written that much non-fiction apart from when I write for the Writers and Readers magazine, which comes out every 2 months, and I've got a series in there called In the Mix, and that's about music industry memories. So that's not fiction, that is actual fact. I've had to change names in case I get the horse's head in the concrete boots, but no. So I haven't really had a lot of experience of being edited that closely. I'm sorry if that doesn't help, really.
No, absolutely fine. Kaz wants to know, do you ever wonder if the real things you lived in the music industry are too crazy for fiction? They say that, don't they? Stranger than fiction. There must be so much that you can't get away with using.
Somebody said to me once, why don't you write your life story? And I thought, well, nobody believe it for a start, and I wouldn't, because as you're writing it, when I say things, when people ask me things and I start to tell them, I think, God, it sounds so unreal. I've had some very, very odd experiences, especially with rock bands. I mean, they just test your patience to the absolute nth degree.
Oh, that's the polite way of putting it.
Yeah, no, I've had them walking on the 17th floor balcony on a skyscraper thing in New York, walking around the edge of the balcony like this, trying to see if they could fall off or not.
Okay, I just shuddered right down my spine.
Yeah, that's pretty grim. And they messed up an elevator in New York. We were staying there recording with I can't remember the name of the record company now, but anyway, we were recording, staying in 54th Street, I think it was, and there was a hotel there which the record company had booked us into, and on the last day, the guy from the record company flew out to take us back to Los Angeles because we were going to do Alcatraz, not Los Angeles, San Francisco. That was right. We went from Los Angeles, do a concert inside Alcatraz, and the elevator that we had to our floor, which was again a 17th floor, was a bit ropey. It used to make these horrible graunching noises, as it went up and down. And I hate elevators. And we got into it. And what they used to do was, as it went down, they used to jump up and down. Well, this band used to jump up and down. I think it was a great thrill, right? It was absolutely petrifying. And anyway, on this last afternoon, the guy from the record company gets in, who was about 10. And these 5 of them all started to jump up and down, up and down, up and down in this elevator as it came down. And it must have been the straw that broke the camel's back, because there was this awful graunching noise and a snapping noise. And we all shot sort of like at an angle like that and fell over. And the thing started to swing. And of course, they're all panicking. And I was thinking, oh, my God, because I don't like heights, And so I got on the buzzer and said to the people, whoever listening on these things, we've got stuck. And we were stuck between the 14th and the 15th floor, I think, at this weird angle. And we were there for 5.5 hours on a Sunday afternoon. We missed the plane. And they were panicking. I had a Bosnian drummer who was a nutter at best of times, but absolutely freaked out. And he kept telling everybody on the intercom, did we do it? Did we do it? And I'm going, shh, because I thought, how much was that going to cost? And eventually what they did was they got an engineer, and he came down in a service shaft thing and opened the panel up and then said, would I, or, who would like to step across first from this thing that was like this, step across down onto this service elevator, and you look down, you could see all the cables going all the way to the basement. And they were saying, the first thing he said was, have you got any elderly or infirm? And they said, we've got Jane. So they said, would she like to come out first? And they said, well, yes, because if she falls, we're not coming. So I had to come across this thing. Oh my God, it was so scary. And eventually we got down to the lobby, and of course the manager was there, and he was kissing our backside in case we were going to sue him. Has anybody got any injuries? Anybody hurt their back? And the band kept saying, but we did it. And I was going, shh, shh, shh. So we missed the plane. And we put up overnight, and all expenses paid for by the hotel. But I never want to do that again. That was scary. 5.5 hours shut in this confined space, 6 other people, and they were absolutely horrible. they were all right for about 2 minutes when it was a laugh, and then it seriously got not funny, and then they all started to panic. So I was trying to keep all these people calm. So you do have some strange experiences, So then again, you can use that I'm sure I will do one day. Use that in a story. I'm waiting to see, but
maybe in the story you can push one of them through the thing and just watch them go.
Do you know how I didn't throw one of them through the thing? They're but for the grace of God. That's all I can say. They were a handful. They were always getting into trouble. Leaving
Lucy
passport.
Sampson has actually said, I saw a documentary about the rock scene in LA in the 70s, 80s on Netflix. A real eye-opener about some of my favourite bands. Lucy, what was it called? I'm intrigued now whether I've seen it or it doesn't sound familiar that I've watched, but something I would watch.
Well, I would, yeah. I mean, you can't write anything.
They're going, I was there for that. They're talking about this. That's the back of my head right there.
Yeah, but I don't think you can exaggerate it because people seem to go mental. I don't know why. I think young lads away from home, perhaps, for the first time, and
you can't remember.
No, I can see that there. They're away from home. I mean, you think what the Who used to get up to. Pete Townsend smashing up his guitars and Keith Moon driving Rolls Royces into swimming pools and throwing television sets out of windows. A lot of them were really bad, especially in the 60s and 70s. I don't hear about so much now, but it's pretty hair raising, especially when you're the one that's left to deal with the manager of the hotel, or the record company or the police, because the police turn up quite often. They want to know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and pat you down and do all of that sort of thing. And you think you can never get on a plane or on a ferry or anything like that without having a complete search in every place you can imagine. They search, because they're expecting you to take drugs. And touch wood, none of my bands did that I knew of, anyway.
I don't work from home. I don't think I could be. I do that every time. I touch the shelves and I touch my head. It's become a habit now. Yeah. But oh my word! So. Yes. Going back to intelligence research, I mean, there must be so many things that you've already picked up, and then were there gaps in your knowledge that you had to look into?
Oh, with what you mean with MI5 and things?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because I didn't work for MI5. I worked for the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, but they interlink quite a lot. There was quite a bit that I had to look up, and I'd obviously learned a lot when I was working there, and I worked for the Ministry of Defence as well. So I picked up a lot from there. But yes, I had to research when I started writing the Birdsong series. The Ukraine thing hadn't really taken off, and I was actually incorporating in the story the downing of the airliner MH17, which was shot down by the pro-Russian Ukrainian separatists. And so I did a lot of research on that. And now I'm bringing it, I mean, it's set from 2016, 2017, 2018. So we haven't got into the invasion yet. I mean, we've got, the Crimea thing and that. So it was very interesting. I mean, because it is crime and it is a bit of intelligence, based things as well. It's not all espionage and what have you. I mean, mainly it's Russian mafia gangs that traffic people and Ukrainian pro-separatists who traffic drugs to get guns from the Russian mafia and into finance their things. So it's quite complicated. I don't want to give the plot away, but it is complex. So yeah, there's a lot of research that goes into it, but I find it fascinating. I think I'd love to work for MI5 or MI6. 007
and loud noises. I would be rubbish. I actually scared myself with my own shadow the other day. Literally, my shadow went round a corner and I jumped. So I don't think this little girl who grew up thinking being a spy would be fun. No,
I think it is. No, I mean, I had I read the books of David Vidsett. Do you know him? He's a counterintelligence.
I've not read anything. No.
Counter-espionage. He wrote 3 books based on his actual career. I think the 7/7 bombings and all of that is involved in it. And then he wrote, or has written recently, a book called Finding Susie, which is about Susie Lamplugh, the estate agent who went missing.
Okay.
10 years and all of his own money went into researching that book and coming up with a conclusion of what he thinks happened to her. And and I looked at that and I thought, God, that's a commitment to do that. But if you want to do something which is complicated, or not complicated when it gets on the page, but it's complicated when you're fiddling around with your head trying to write it, you have to do it. Otherwise, the thing is that I took forensic science courses and criminal justice courses at various universities because I thought, I'm putting dead bodies in my books, but I haven't got a clue how you investigate it or how you decide how they died or anything. So I did Val McDermott's course with Professor Dame Sue Black at was it Dundee University? That was the first course I did, which is for crime writers. And it was brilliant. And then I just went on and did some others. And I don't actually put gore in my books, but I like to know that if I did say there was a body and this happened to it, that I'm not talking out of my ear.
Yeah, of course.
Because you get people tell you, that wouldn't happen. What makes you think that happens? So I thought I better find out before I put pen to paper, and that's what I did. And I found it fascinating. I mean, we investigated in the criminal justice one the miscarriage of justice with Jill Dando's murder, the guy called Barry George, and also something called the Innocent Project, which are the group of lawyers that do it for free. And they did the investigation into those 3 poor black men that were released after 36 years in America for a crime they never did. So that is interesting. And I think, if you ever wanted to write about that sort of thing, there's lots of opportunities out there, lots of resources that you can go and look and find out enough to just make it plausible. You don't want to be an expert. I'm not an expert, but
but you need to know enough just to kind of have an element of reality.
Yeah.
The only way you need, in fact, I actually saw this. I think Graham Bartlett shared it earlier today, and it was basically a quote that said exactly that unless you're going to go into detail, just give it enough, because if you go into detail and you get it wrong, I can't remember the direct quote. I'm obviously paraphrasing and making it longer. But
he's right. I think it's like when you go into too much detail and you lose somebody. I mean, if you've ever skipped through pages. I'm a great Robert Ludlum fan. I have been since I was quite young. But I found that some of his books, I can't remember what it was called, but one of his books was about a submarine and all this weapons system on this submarine. I swear it must have been 3 chapters of the technical side of this submarine.
Wow.
And I thought, I don't need to know that. I really don't need to know that. All I need is just a gloss, just gloss over it and tell me the basics and then move on. But it was so intricate. And I think if you're a guy and you love fiddling around with bits and pieces and like to know how things work, that's great. But it was more like an instruction manual than
so it could maybe have been an accompaniment rather than part of the book.
It should have been, like a glossary or something. And then, if you're interested in this weapon system, this is. But he lost me. I thought I really enjoyed the book up until that. And then about 3 chapters of all this technical stuff. And I thought, well, even if I was a guy, would I really want to know all that and read it? I mean, it lost the pace and it lost the sort of tension in the story, And so I hope. I'll touch wood again, but I hope I don't do that. I don't go into I don't describe bodies and that and murders. I don't go into the grisly. I let people sort of use their imagination a bit, I think.
Yeah, you do leave it so people kind of fill in the blanks. There's enough there, but then the actual, it will be a different level of grisly in different people's minds, won't it, as they imagine it?
Yeah, I don't want to freak anybody out, And I won't read nasty bits in books either. I do sort of flip over those. You know, if it's too gory, I just think, oh no.
The only thing I really ever skip is child abuse stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll read up to that, but I will skip paragraphs. And I do tell authors that if I'm interviewing, I will say I did skip that bit because it's not for me. So there's a lot that I will read, and there's a lot of gore and grisly stuff. But for me, that's the bit that I would skirt past.
Yeah, I think if it's there and it's necessary, that's fine. But if it's there to shock you or to give you some sort of, I don't know what it is, some sort of weird thrill, I can't. I just know I won't look at it.
I'm sure most people have got something that is just not for them.
Spiders.
Oh God! I just had something fall over in my kitchen. I've no idea what it was, but
we're talking about spooks.
As we know, everybody left before we went on. So
perhaps somebody came back.
Now we have an alarm on the door. I would have heard them come in. Let's move on before you watch the colour literally drain from my face. We have got 2 minutes left. Kaz has said this has been a fab chat, ladies, and then I realised it's 2 minutes before we're done. So I'm going to ask you your most memorable moment as an author so far.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to ask you to show off your book covers, and I'm not going to get to anything else that I wrote because we've literally just gone with the flow.
Oh right. My most memorable, I think actually was when somebody actually sent me a contract, and I thought, I don't believe it. You know, I'd never dreamed of. Well, I sort of must have dreamed of being published when I was a kid, but I never took it seriously. And then it came, and I thought, oh my God. That was mostly it. And also when people tell you that they like what you write, I can't help it. I get chuffed all day long.
You get so many compliments on your work. There's just so much. Wherever I was looking for, it's just constant. There's loads of nice comments. So you must revel in the reviews that you've got.
I usually I don't believe them. My husband always says to me, believe it. And I say, no. But
if somebody has taken the time to say something nice, then believe it, because just imagine how easy it is to write a bad review. That's generally because people are wound up. So how must people be feeling to go on and write such nice things?
I don't know, because most of them I don't know. These people I don't know. There have been people in India and Singapore and Germany, and I don't know who they are. I get to know them afterwards because I always thank them. But I don't know why. But it's so wonderful. It is wonderful. I'm not diminishing that. It is. But I just can't believe it. I think, why would you like silly old me sit down and write that and you like it? But I do. But you want to see my book covers, right? So
I do, go for it before
crime shorts. Okay. We've got This Is Not Crime, but Only One Woman. If you like music, right? In a Word, Murder, which is a combination of stories in there. I've got magazine covers, loads and loads of magazines there. That's the latest one. I ought to show you that because she'll kill me otherwise. There we are. So that's the music industry thing. Where are my other book covers? Oh, they're over the other side of the room. But if you go onto Amazon, you'll see them on my author page or on my.
Has dropped the link to your website already? So
she is sweet. Thank you so much.
She is.
Well, I haven't nattered too much because I do waffle.
We've absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved every minute. There's times when I'm sat here thinking we're actually live and I'm forgetting. I'm just sat listening to stories and thinking I should be thinking ahead, and I'm just sat listening instead. So thank you so much, and thank you to everybody who's commented and joined in tonight and watched.
Yes,
thank you, Jane, and good luck finding a publisher for the Birdsong trilogy, and hopefully not just a trilogy.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for everybody that's made a comment. I shall read them through later and put some answers there, if that's allowed.
Absolutely is.
Thank you for having me.
Now it's the grinning idiot bit, so thank you.